your smile can't disguise.
What's up everyone, Jared here. Now Samsung's latest flagships are here. They're beautiful, they're high end, they've got nice new curves, but they're also highly fingerprint prone. Now I love the feel, but personally I wish Samsung went with an all metal design. That said, it's far from a deal breaker for me. In fact, I ended up just getting a skin because I was embarrassed when handing it to friends. Now we've still got micro USB, and while Samsung may have made that choice to prevent its Gear VR headset from becoming redundant, I'm still a little beat up about it. Now another small annoyance isn't just the same placement of the speaker, but the sound. The sound has gotten worse, which is a side effect of the IP68 water and dust resistant process, which depending on your needs might be a tiny price to pay. Now the displays on these devices have, and I think might always be, the best on the market, because just like last year and the year before, lines are super sharp, colors pop like nothing else, and with the Quad HD resolution, online content viewing is always top notch. I feel like this is getting repetitive, but it's a good repetitive. Now the always on displays are an awesome idea, but I'm simply not a fan of Samsung's implementation. And the sad thing is, it's not really Samsung's fault. With an AMOLED display, screen burn-in is a legitimate concern. So to prevent that from happening, Samsung had the always on display image bounce around the screen, which can get pretty distracting if the phone's visible, like in front of you on a table or something like that. Oh, and as far as I can tell, it doesn't support third-party apps, which means no visible notifications from Google Hangouts, for example. The fingerprint scanner on last year's Samsung Galaxy S6 was fast, and the same can be said for this year's S7. But, and it's totally possible that it's just my device, I feel like after using the iPhone and my Nexus 6P, the S7 just isn't quite as consistently accurate as the other two devices mentioned. I mean, it's not nearly bad enough for me to switch back to PIN or pattern or even swipe to unlock, but for example, if I'm just casually trying to unlock my 6P without even trying for accurate fingerprint placement, 99% of the time it unlocks just fine. But under the same circumstances with the S7, it'll work maybe 50% of the time. So I just have to be more deliberate with my finger placement. So since the S6, it feels like Samsung's been hesitantly refining the look and feel of TouchWiz. And most everything's still the same as what we saw last year. But this year Samsung's added something I thought was pretty neat. Game Launcher. It not only acts as a folder to stash all your games if you want, it's also a little HUD that gives you some pretty sweet features while in games. My favorite's the back and recent button lock, preventing unwanted key presses. I think it's pretty cool. The Edge software on the Galaxy S7 Edge has been given a refresh and some added functionality over and above what we saw on the Galaxy S6 Edge, which I was really pleased to see. So we've got things like a total of 9 Edge panels that can be added with a total of 11 to choose from. We also now have more options for app shortcuts, panels based on your location, and a bunch of other potentially useful stuff depending on your needs, which is pretty sweet. Not to mention, it just flat out looks cool. But that said, as someone who used the S6 Edge as my daily driver from launch right up until the Nexus 6P launched, I do want to bring up a couple of things to your attention before you haul off shelling out a small fortune for the S7 Edge. It's not quite as comfortable to hold in the hand since the rails on the side are almost just half the width of the standard S7, which also annoyingly and consequently causes the display to read false positive touches as you try and reach across the larger 5.5-inch display, or even sometimes pauses videos with your palm, which can get beyond frustrating when you're invested and immersed. But hey, it still looks really cool, and I wouldn't blame you for a hot minute if you decided to get one. Now, depending on where you live, you're either going to get the Snapdragon 820 CPU version or Samsung's own Exynos 8890 version. Both come with 4 gigs of RAM, and whichever version you do end up with, just know this, you're going to get a fast phone. Even last year's phone was fast, and to be honest, performance on flagship devices these days is hardly worth mentioning because they're all fast now. And testing performance while playing games is actually rather interesting to me because thanks to Samsung's new internal cooling system, it never got warmer than comfortable. It's pretty cool. And although depending on where you live, you might be limited to 32 or 64 gigs of internal storage, Samsung's reintroduced expandable storage in the form of a micro SD/SIM card tray, which should make everyone happy again. Now the S7 and S7 Edge do have different capacity batteries, which will separate the two for some folks quite a bit. So with the standard S7's 3000 mAh battery, I was able to achieve a pretty consistent 6 to 7 hours of screen on time, which as far as I'm concerned is phenomenal. But check this out, with the S7 Edge and its 3600 mAh battery, I was able to pull just over 9 hours of screen on time. 9 hours, people, that's incredible for a device with a Quad HD display and TouchWiz. Now the new rear-facing 12 megapixel camera is no slouch either, and although they dropped the megapixel count from last year's 16 megapixels, it doesn't really bother me because pictures are still stupid sharp with great color accuracy and have a pretty impressive amount of dynamic range. During Samsung's S7 and S7 Edge press event, they showed off some pretty impressive examples that got me all excited for its new low light capabilities. And while those new capabilities might not work for every situation, its low light performance is noticeable and does help keep shots as sharp as possible. So for me, both the S7 and S7 Edge are great phones, and honestly, I'd have no issues recommending them to anyone. Anyone who doesn't own last year's model, that is. I mean, unless water resistance is an absolute must-have, forking out the extra cash simply for better battery life doesn't quite justify ditching a year-old phone to me. But if you have anything older, yeah, I'd say it's totally worth the upgrade and you'll be more than happy you did. Anyways, that's it for this one. Stay tuned for my camera comparison video, and if you like this one, don't forget to leave me a like, and if you're new to my stuff, don't forget to subscribe for more real soon. But thanks as always for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Cheers.